Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, February 2nd. This is episode 49 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Make sure to please like and subscribe. Another week, and we've got one game left in the 2024-25 NFL season, as it's another Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl rematch from 2 years ago. Next week, exactly 1 week from today, in Super Bowl 59 out in New Orleans. So today we're going to break down a couple different things on this show, obviously kind of transitioning now into some offseason stuff, some offseason topics. We'll get into what's next for the Bills, get into the future of a couple key players in the AFC North, Justin Fields, T. Higgins, and we'll also break down with the NFL honors coming up this week, some of our award predictions for the 2024 NFL season. So a lot to get into. DiMari, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. One game left, and that is worst possible Super Bowl outcome for some of us. But last week of NFL football, next week, pretty slow week. But stay patient with us, as like you just said, as the offseason comes in, we'll have some draft news, some more offseason news, some more coaching news when the Saints finally decides, I guess, make a move. But other than that, I think you kind of started us or say what we're going to start off, and that is with the team that we both thought would be in the Super Bowl, and that is the Bills, who completely let America down last week. So let's get into it.
Yeah, definitely. And the Saints, obviously, feels like they're kind of finalizing or zoning, really getting in on Kellen Moore, but we'll see. Obviously, got to wait until the Super Bowl, but that feels like it's going to be the answer there. So whenever that happens, we'll have it here on the show. But yeah, Buffalo Bills, another year, another playoff exit, another year, another same old Bills type of exit. 0-4 now. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. This is an organization, it's just a franchise that just is the pure example of just not being able to finish it, not being able to get it done. You look at 2020 was the last time they made the title game. Since that point, lost the divisional round twice, the 113 second game, lost last year at home to the Chiefs, now here again in the title game. So, what I wanted to get into today, and we were going to get into today, is just kind of what's next for this team. And I guess just first of all, when you look at last week's matchup against the Chiefs, that game, and really any game that we see the Chiefs play in the postseason, it's just another reminder of how perfect you have to be in order to beat Kansas City. And I think we've gotten to this point too now with the Chiefs, is where they are not going to have dominant regular seasons anymore. They're not going to be this team that impresses you a ton during the regular season. I think we've gotten to the point with Kansas City where they're going to hide a lot. And then once they get to the postseason, that's where they're going to let everything out, especially when they play a team like Buffalo, where you see one of the best games the Chiefs played all year was last week. And for Buffalo, is just another one of those examples where they beat them in the regular season, which we have now seen a lot of, and you can't get it done in the postseason, and it's the little things. And it just shows you how perfect you have to be. And you really start to wonder, like, will Buffalo, especially with Josh Allen, ever actually get over the hump here against Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team? I mean, you can question any team in the AFC. Will anybody outside of the one team or the one quarterback currently that has beaten Mahomes in the playoffs in Burrow? Obviously, Brady did as well, not in the league anymore. I guess just to start, though, like, where do you feel the Bills stand right now, right after this playoff exit? Another one of these games where it's a 3-point game. They had a chance to win it late. Couple calls you want to say didn't go their way, but I don't think people can sit here and blame this game as on the refs. The Bills had a chance. Josh Allen had a chance with the ball in his hand. 3 minutes left, couple timeouts to go down and drive. And they didn't. They had a chance to go down and score and take the lead. They couldn't do that. And we've seen that now plenty of times. Going back even to 2021, 13 seconds left. All they had to do was get a stop. They couldn't do it. They lose in overtime. Last year, same thing. You get that late touchdown, or you get the missed field goal, rather, from after the McCole Hardman mistake. You get the missed field goal from Tyler Bass. It's always the small little things killing this Bills team in these games. And here we are again talking about a Bills team that I think we can all agree this is probably the best team, best chance they probably had with Allen, just the way they were playing, the way Allen was playing as well. right? They've got a bunch of kind of B receivers, no real number one option. I think that took some of the pressure off Josh, but here we are again.
Honestly, I don't know where they go from here. Because I mean, you said it perfectly. This is probably the best core they're going to have. So it's not like, and you saying the B list type of receiver. I think that's the perfect way for me to lead into what I want to say, because it's not like Amari Cooper when it had 12 catches, like 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, and either get rid of them. Matt Collins, Khalil Shakir, those guys stepped up and they did their jobs, which is all you need. You don't need the big name guys. You just need the guys that can do their jobs, which is what they did. And it wasn't enough. I mean, James Cook played good. Josh Allen didn't turn the ball over. Josh Allen played good. Nothing of it was enough. So you look at this Bills team and how good they played all year. It's like they didn't have a necessarily weakness where you're just like, okay, this is going to be the issue when they play Kansas City, because they look so well, all year. But then again, you get into Kansas City again, and like you said, you have to play almost perfect to beat that team. And yes, they did have a chance at ending that game to still win that game. That drop, that was brutal.
Yeah.
Like, that was absolutely brutal. But there's something that I do, I don't want to put blame necessarily on one person, but I think that game changed when Christian Benford obviously got injured, and it went downhill from there.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Benford was a massive loss. And also just on that 4th down drop, all game on offense, Joe Brady, who's been excellent all year, I didn't think he had his best day. The 2 4th down misses, look, whether or not that was a first down, it's the debatable, probably was. But we have to get to the point now. We just have to face it. The Chiefs are going to get the benefit of the doubt. And it's not like that was an egregious call. It's just like one New England, right? They're going to get the benefit of the doubt. It's going to happen. That's what makes it so tough. But that's what happens when you build a dynasty and you have a chance to make history and win win 3 in a row. But again, I still can't blame the refs on this one. I see too many Bills fans blaming the refs. So you had a chance with 3 minutes left. And my point with Joe Brady is they missed the 2 4th down opportunities. You can't miss those. I don't know why they went back to the Josh Allen quarterback sneak. The Josh Allen out of the shotgun running it, to me, was working much better than they stopped the Josh Allen sneak, I think, twice. And they stopped it because they kind of loaded up on the left side, which is where the Bills like to run it, and they were able to stop him. Joe Brady, I thought actually Steve Spagnuolo, kind of outcoached and was a little bit of a mismatch there for Joe Brady. I also didn't love the 3rd and 10 play call from Joe Brady on the last drive where they kind of threw that screen. I know it ended up picking up 5 yards, but I don't know, just under 3 minutes left, 3rd and 10. You'd like to do a little bit more than just a quick screen pass. I think I think you try there, maybe just me, but then you try there for a little bit of a larger chunk play, try and get 7 to 9, and then you set yourself up with a whole lot less of a 4th down situation as opposed to 4th and 5 or 4th and 6. I think it was 4th and 5. And even on that last play call, all the Chiefs gave them something that they were not ready for. They blitzed the heck out of Allen. They sent everybody. He wasn't ready for it. He had no time. Even that too, the Bills weren't prepared for. So yeah, Benford going down was massive. I thought the play calling from Brady was questionable. 4th downs, not converting on a couple of those were certainly hurt them. And then too, I mean, look, the defense, I didn't think the defense played terrible. They did allow 30 points, but then again, the defense, they did have that stretch there where the Bills missed that 4th down. Then the Chiefs, at that point, the Bills are up by 1. They missed that 4th down, and then it's all downhill from after that from a defensive perspective, because then they let up the touchdown the next drive, and then they let up the field goal. So the defense late also kind of blew it in a way where their 4th quarter wasn't their strongest. It's just, there's nothing more, and this is the point, like there's nothing more that this team really needs to do from a roster perspective. There isn't. Like a couple years ago, we went back with Buffalo and said, or even last year, and I think this is important too. We went back last year and said with Buffalo, like, oh, they need to run the ball more, right? They need to get James Cook involved more. Well, that's what they did this year. James Cook was a massive piece of that offense. And to be fair, they probably should have ran it. That's another thing too. I don't know why they didn't run the ball more in the first half. I don't quite understand that. They've started to run in the second half and it was working well. Another questionable aspect of the Brady play calling, in my opinion, but Cook still had 2 touchdowns. He finished the year with 16 touchdowns, 1,000 yards in the regular season. He added 3 more on in the postseason rushing. So that's 19 touchdowns combined rushing. So they're running the ball more. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. Their defense is solid. Like, they got healthy at the right time. They got Matt Milano back. I know Benford went down, but they were getting pieces back. And that was one of the big reasons why they had success against Baltimore, is in that Baltimore game earlier in the year, they were missing a lot of key pieces that could stop the run. So I think if you're a Bills fan, it's just, you have to be perfect and hope. I think more so you have to hope one year that KC gets eliminated before you play them.
To your point on the defense, that actually is the angle that I wanted to go at. I think Bobby Babich is, I don't want to say fully to blame, but again, we're going to go back to Christian Benford. So, and this one's kind of tough because obviously, I know Kyer Elam, who struggled, that's part of the game. It is what it is. I don't think people truly understand how hard it is to play defensive back, let alone in the National Football League, let alone against 2 of the fastest wide receivers in football. Yeah. So seeing people bash him on Twitter, like, it's kind of crazy. That's the hardest position to play in football. I don't care what people say. But here's the thing. And even Tony Romo said it. You heard him say it multiple times on the broadcast, where it's like, look, Kyer Elam out there, obviously there's one high safety. They're in a lot of man-to-man. First and foremost, the Chiefs, that's not a team you really want to sit a man against, just because, again, they have Xavier Worthy, they have Hollywood Brown back, who are 2 flyers. They're fast guys, but they also run a lot of drags and they run a lot of crossers, which anyone that has played defensive back knows that is literally the hardest route in football to stop, is a drag or a crosser. So you're in man-to-man and you're putting this guy in this situation, and it's not even Kyer Elam. It's the other corner, the other side as well, where you're putting them in these situations where you want them to run across the field and, try to hold on to these drags and these crossers, when you have also an athletic Patrick Mahomes that makes plays happen with his legs, he can get out and extend. And it's like, at some point, you want to get out of that man and you want to drop to a zone, which that is also as difficult with, Travis Kelce is a zone killer. He's going to find an open spot in that zone. But at that point, would you rather sit back in the zone and, let them sit in the zone and then you come up and rally and tackle, or would you continue to get killed on the drags, killed on the crossers, which they were getting, which was happening the whole entire second half? So, I mean, it's so tough because you look at how well the defense did play up until like 3.5 quarters, and you're just like, okay, you can't blame the defense moving forward. But when you are stuck in one defensive coverage and it's man-to-man, one high safety, and all they're doing is running across the field, at some point, you deserve some of that blame, because it's like you obviously have a backup corner in there. You got 2 guys in the league that are just known for what they do after the catch, known for their speed. Why are you impressed man-to-man? It absolutely makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, too, this was a bad look for Brandon Beane in the front office, because you have a game where Xavier Worthy, that, of course, going back to last year's draft, you trade the pick. That's another thing. I don't understand. From the moment that happened, I don't understand Buffalo's thought process in that. And now it comes back to bite you. Xavier Worthy had easily his best. I mean, he only played 1 playoff game previously, but was better than he was in Houston, and arguably probably one of the better games he had in the NFL. I mean, he went out for 85 yards, 6 catches, and a touchdown. Just looking at his game log here, that would be a career high in yards in a game this season, the most. The second most was the Christmas Day game against Pittsburgh, where he had 79 and a touchdown and 8 catches. But another one of those games where you don't give Kansas City speed. That's not what you don't give them that. And what did the Bills do? They said, oh, here, take Xavier Worthy. And to be fair, Khalil Shakir had a good game. Mac Hollins had a big game, but it wasn't a good day either for Keon Coleman. And that's something too, I think you look back on, just runs much deeper than just the game itself, going back to April and making that decision. I'm not saying that the Bills, if they had Xavier Worthy, would have been going to the Super Bowl right now, but you take away at least one of the Chiefs' leading receiver from that game, and you take away speed from Kansas City, which is their identity and what makes them so tough to beat, instead of giving them speed by trading that pick. So it's just stuff. And yeah, Elam had a rough day, but I think it also just runs deeper than that too. You can't blame it on obviously one player. I also think too, just early in this game, like the first drive for Buffalo is ugly. In the future, right? Like this team, something that was so good about Buffalo in the postseason is being able to start fast. They were able to start fast some of those games against, Baltimore. Like Josh Allen kind of looked like 2019, 2018 Josh Allen in that first drive where he was kind of all over the place. That's tough to do on the road.
Two of the quote unquote arm punts is what they like to call it. He had a few of those. And, one time Romo was like, "Oh, it's because the flag's on the field." I really didn't believe that it was because the flag was on the field. It was Josh Allen doing too much. And I mean, even though it doesn't count on the stat sheet, but that's 2 interceptions that dropped on one drive alone. And that kind of I feel like they kind of set the pace for the game of what type of game it was going to be for Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Now, when you look at Buffalo's free agents, Cooper will be a free agent. Rasul Douglas, one of their corners, who's been solid since they believe traded for him last year. Mac Hollins will be out, free agent. Ty Johnson, actually been solid for them. So nobody big, but you do wonder, like, they bring back Cooper? Do they bring back Hollins? I think you probably bring back one of those two guys. Maybe both. I don't know. I think Cooper's probably going to want to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, nobody big, but very impactful players when they're all, doing their part. I just think the part of Amari Cooper, I think he's gone. I mean, as much as he's at that point of his career where he's like, I don't care about the stats. I just want to win. It's that something Buffalo is going to be like, hey, well, what I'm trying to say is, does he come back to Buffalo and then eventually it has to get frustrating where you're not very impactful in the game, right? So did he come back to Buffalo and now we're in week 6 and he's like, what am I doing? Like, I can go win somewhere else and be a contributor.
Yeah, and we see this so much in sports where players will go to a team, not play well, and then kind of stick around with that team, or that team just in general, like they'll not play well for a little bit or they're not involved much, and then they kind of just lose it. Amari Cooper, I think, still got a lot of gas left in the tank. I mean, it's a guy that last year went off for 1,200 yards. I don't think Cooper is going to want to be a player to go join Buffalo and put up 500 yards next season. Like, I do, look, he wants to win, but I think he can go to another team and get a whole lot more targets and a whole lot more opportunities and win, as opposed to stay in Buffalo, win, but be a, I don't know, 500, 600 yard receiver in a full season. I mean, in 8 games, he had 297 yards. So that was pretty much 300. So yeah, another 9 games, probably gets another 300. Yeah, you're looking at maybe 600 yards and like 4 or 5 touchdowns. That's not, I think he can do a lot better than that. So we'll see. But to me, it's going to come down to they got to be perfect in these games. Everybody has to be perfect, but there's not one thing Buffalo has to do. And that's probably the worst part of being maybe a Bills fan right now, is just knowing that the team is right there. Like, they're ready to go and win a Super Bowl. They just can't get past Kansas City. And it's, I guess they got to propose a question like, will the Bills actually ever get over the hump? Like, how many times? The definition of insanity is basically doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Not that the Bills are like insanity from a perspective of their running back, something that's not working, but it's working in the regular season, but it's not working in the postseason. And people propose like, oh, fire McDermott. who are you going to bring in that's going to beat? Like, I don't think
And
firing McDermott's going to all of a sudden make them win the Super Bowl. I don't think that's it. I think they need a little bit of luck on their side. They need Kansas City to have a down year, or they just need to win, find a way to be 4 points better. I know that's cliche, but like, what are you going to do? Fire McDermott? Who are you going to hire? Tell me who you're going to hire right now if you fire McDermott. Nobody.
And I think we've talked about this maybe 2 episodes ago, where it's like you fire him and then what? You bring in a whole new system, and it's
like,
just no point. So I mean, yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm right with you. Be 4 points better. Make the plays you're supposed to play. I mean, that drop at the end of the game
it's on
is
McDermott.
He got you there. He's been getting you there every single year. So what, you want to part ways and do what? At first you look at the market. Who are you going? Mike McCarthy? Like, who are you about to go get right now that possibly will get the job done?
Yeah, there's nobody out there right now that is like a proven Super Bowl winning coach. There's nobody really. Like, you're not going to trade for Tomlin because he can't get over the top right now. McCarthy would be doing the exact same thing as McDermott, getting to the playoffs every year and losing. And, I know they've had some really bad exits, some really rough exits, but it's not like they're going deep. At least I think you would make the case for firing McDermott if, let's say, they lost in the wild card game to the Broncos this year. Then you can make the case, okay, we got to fire him. But otherwise, they can't get past KC, and they couldn't get past the 1 year against Burrow and the Bengals either. So, I'm just trying to think. Like, what were you saying?
I would say let's say next year, same situation, but this time they get KC at home, AFC Championship, and lose. If that is maybe we go another way with McDermott. Yes, that I can understand. But as of now, I mean, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah. But if you go another way with McDermott, I'm just trying to think of like who they would bring in. And I'm trying to think of other examples of similar to Buffalo where team couldn't get them over the top, then a coach comes in and gets them over the top. I guess, I don't know.
There's no option. There's literally no option that you go with. I mean, the only one I would have
said this year would maybe be Pete Carroll, just because he's done it. But I mean, I still I don't think Pete Carroll is just going to walk in there and win a Super Bowl year one.
No,
I don't think they win that game if Pete Carroll's on the sidelines. But you would need, the only reason for firing McDermott is if you would hire somebody that's already won a Super Bowl, proven track record, not promote Joe Brady and say, oh, this is the answer. No, you'd have to hire somebody proven. Otherwise, there's no reason to. And I understand McDermott's not perfect, but I'd take him. I mean, a lot of teams would take him.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you that.
Yeah. All right. So that's the Buffalo angle. Just kind of no man's land right now, where they're going to run it back. We'll have similar roster. They'll probably beat the Chiefs in the regular season. I assume they play them again. Probably away, I think, because the Chiefs had the better record. So they'll probably beat them in the regular season. We'll go into the postseason and everybody will hype them up. This is the year. This is the year. And it won't happen. So I'm just curious. One more thing. How many dominant years you think Josh Allen has left? I mean, he's in the prime of his career right now. He's 28. He'll be 29 in May. He's entering year 8?
3 to 4. I think it's 3 to 4. Staying healthy, it's 3 to 4. I mean, you haven't seen any signs of drop off. I think actually this might have been the best season ever played, if we're being honest. So there's no sign of drop off. But
yeah, I agree.
If they don't
I
get
think
it done
it's
in 3 to 4, win one.
Yeah, I think so too. He's 7 years in. He'll be 29. you look at 3 to 4 years from now, he's going to be what, 32, 33. You kind of get to that age where his contract that he's on right now will be up. It usually tends to happen where a core of a team will kind of start to sometimes like fall off. Like maybe they'll have a year where they'll miss the playoffs, and then they'll have a year where they lose like in the wild card, and you can kind of start to see like the slow dive down. Although that's usually with teams that win Super Bowls, where you'll see like Seattle, right? They went back to back. You could start to see that downward trend where what they lost 2015 in the divisional round to the Panthers. Then was it the 1 year? Was it the Falcons year? They lost to the Falcons in the divisional round, and then
They
they
had
lost to the
Cowboys one of those years.
Cowboys. Then like really late. Was it the COVID season? They lost to the Rams. Was it? No. Who did they lose to in the
15 was 15 15 I think the year they 15 year they
15? They
won,
lost to
right?
the 15-1 Panthers.
I think 15 was the Panthers.
Then 16 was the Falcons. They
16
missed the
was the
playoffs in
Falcons.
17.
17.
18
They
lost
lost
to the
to
Cowboys.
Cowboys in 18. Yeah, it was. I don't think they after that. I don't remember
Yeah,
them after touching
19
the postseason.
19 was the Packers, and then 20 they lost to the Rams in that bad loss at home. And that was like the last straw. Because then the next year they missed the playoffs, and that was the end of it. They move on from Russell Wilson, and that's been Geno the last 3 years. So that's where you kind of get where make the playoffs. Maybe you have a year you miss the playoffs, you start losing the wild card and fall off. But no signs of that happening anytime soon. But yeah, you look maybe 3 years from now when he's 31, you start to think about other things. I don't know. Anyway, moving on here to a quarterback that's not anywhere near Josh Allen, but that is Justin Fields. Hearing some reports out of Pittsburgh here that there is interest from Pittsburgh that they want him back. Seems like though you do hear some of these reports is one of the key hurdles in getting him back is, from what I've heard, is some of his relationship and chemistry with George Pickens isn't exactly great. Fields is an interesting quarterback, right? Free agent, see what happens. Really, not even just Fields, but the Steelers situation in general at quarterback is interesting, where you have Russ, you have Fields. You're gonna have to make a decision on both of those guys. Which one's back? Which one's not? It's interesting. I'll be honest. I don't love either of these quarterbacks for the Steelers. I mean, I don't know if you can really sit here if we're talking about week one, and I do think Fields has some good traits, and we'll see what the Steelers do in the draft. But I do think you get to a point where it's like, is Fields really going to be enough in a division with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, and potentially whatever the Browns do, whether that's draft a quarterback, whether that's go out and, I don't know, trade for one, whatever they do, is Fields or Russell Wilson really enough? And I just don't think it is. And I thought Fields looked okay last year. I thought he was solid, but he's nothing to really write home about, nothing to the point of, and I understand they went 4-2, but that's just the way Pittsburgh goes. They win a lot of close games. Their defense is solid. They're much better early in the season than later in the season. And here we are again with Fields, hitting the open market. I don't know. Like, Pittsburgh needs to be better than this, in my opinion. Nothing against Fields, but I think Fields would be better off. Pittsburgh just needs to draft somebody or go all out and take a chance on a Sam Darnold coming off of a career year or something like that, rather than trying to a reclamation project in a way of Justin Fields, hoping that he pans out, banking on potential that he hasn't hit before, or Russell Wilson, who is clearly out of his prime, hoping that you can maybe squeeze one more year out of competent football from him, which probably just isn't happening. So
This is a team. I feel like we talk about the same thing every time we talk
yeah,
about them. and that's bad for them. It's like I don't know what they can possibly do or who they can possibly bring in just because of the division that they play in.
Yeah.
And I also think, this is going to be I'm going to get a little sidetracked here, but it's going to be on the same path of things. I think what makes it so tough is the outdated system that you
Yeah.
mentioned, the offense from the 1940s. And I think it might have been, was it Julian Edelman? I can't remember exactly. Some former player was just on a podcast talking about how Pittsburgh's defensive schemes are the same thing that they used to run back when he played, linebackers covering receivers, and that hasn't changed. So my point of saying that is it's obviously the same thing on the offense, right? Because it's not going to be so different offensively where the defense is outdated, but the offense is with all the new, ways of not elevation, but just adapting to like the new ways of the game.
Yeah.
So both sides of the ball are so old and just old fashioned and old system. So it's like, who are you going to bring in
Yeah.
right now that is going to be able to help that offense? They first of all, they need to change that offense. And I think with that being said, if they want to go in the new direction, it should be Justin Fields because everything now you need a quarterback with some type of mobility. That is
Yeah.
your way to win. Russ can't do that anymore. Russ is done, cooked, over with. He can't do that anymore. So, if you go with Fields, you have to change that offense. You have to do something that is going to work around him better. Not, hey, we want to drop back and throw hitches and do all the old stuff that we used to do back in the 40s. Like, you need to fix the offense and you need to bring players in to help your quarterback. If Pittsburgh's not going to do that, I mean, it doesn't matter who they bring in, that they're going to be trash.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I just want to say this, and I got nothing against the guy, but I don't understand the obsession over like Arthur Smith in the NFL. I don't get it. He's not a good coach. In fact, he's awful. He goes to Atlanta, goes 7-10 in 3 straight years, does absolutely nothing there, misuses Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson a ton. I mean, it was criminal what he did to Bijan Robinson last year on a team with no quarterback. That offense should have ran through Bijan Robinson, and it didn't. I mean, how many times did fantasy owners were fed up with the Falcons not doing anything week in and week out because Arthur Smith just, I don't know. Oh, I got 2 good talents, or I got a first round running back and the kid's a stud. Let me just, Desmond Ridder, drop back for me 40 times and just throw it deep. Drake London will be down there somewhere. And then this time around, he gets more interviews in the coaching cycle. Like, I know the Jets interviewed him. I believe he got a couple other interviews. I just don't know exactly where. No, not Tennessee. Who was the other one? Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville. Did they interview? I don't know. He got more interviews. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It was the Jets and somebody else. Maybe the Saints. I don't know. Although the Saints, who knows? At this point, they might as well interview me because they're lost. So they might interview both of us. But the thing with Arthur Smith, I just don't understand the love for him. Like, I get it coming out of Tennessee a couple years ago when he got that Atlanta job. I understood that. But Atlanta for 3 years did nothing. Goes to Pittsburgh, offense ranks in the 20s. And here we are again. Arthur Smith's still the guy. He's still getting head coach interviews. I don't understand. Like, his offenses are like watching paint dry. The Steelers as a team are like watching paint dry. I think the Steelers could be a team that benefits from a young offensive mind. A guy like a Nick Caley or somebody like that, right? Nick Caley won't go there. But if they would have fired Arthur Smith, a young offensive mind from one of these really good coaching trees that can come in and really turn this offense into a modern day NFL offense with, let's be honest, pieces that fit a modern day NFL offense. Because I do think the Steelers, their lack of talent, they don't have many pieces that fit that modern day offense. We talk about this all the time, but I don't think Najee Harris is really the one or the first back that, or the like the downhill back that you want in today's NFL game. Like, I think he is an old school back that would be better off as kind of a Najee Harris probably should be a number 2. on a really good team, probably not a number one. Just the explosives aren't quite there. He's more of a short yardage back that would be really good behind a speed and pass catching threat out of the backfield. But they don't have that. George Pickens is a diva. They're outside of Pickens, you're relying on guys like Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, Mike Williams, Ben Skoranek. You also have Pat Freiermuth, who's solid, but outside of Freiermuth, we've seen Darnell Washington get a good amount of snaps. Like, that's not going to get anywhere when you're in a division with Lamar. We talk about Derrick Henry, Burrow, Chase. We'll get to Higgins here soon, but not going to work. So I think Fields would be better off, honestly, with another team as opposed to Arthur Smith, because let's be honest, if things don't work out next year for Fields or the Steelers in general, let's say they get to the playoffs, losing the wild card, the offense doesn't go well, then they fire Arthur Smith. How does that work for Fields? Like, that's not going to, things have to learn a new system, go elsewhere. It's going to be a mess. The Steelers desperately need a complete retool. They need like a year where they just blow it up, get a top pick for 2026, get a quarterback, and go from there. That's what they need. They're so mediocre right now that they are so far away from being a Super Bowl team, but they're also so far away from being the worst team in the NFL because they can make the wild card, but they're going to get blown out. And that's the worst place to be in the NFL is mediocrity. I think the best thing for Pittsburgh is to blow it up, restart, use 2025 as a retool year, and you go all in 2026 with an Arch Manning or one of those quarterbacks coming out of the draft.
And I'm going to 1,000% agree. And just to piggyback off your point of just them being mediocre and some of the names that you listed, they don't have a game changer. I don't care what I think you've heard me say this before. No. I don't think George Pickens is a game changer. George Pickens is, remember when Emmanuel Acho called Justin Herbert a social media quarterback? Yeah. I feel like George Pickens is a social media wide receiver. He's going to give you that one phenomenal one-handed catch for 37 yards, and you're like, oh my goodness, George Pickens. You go look at the stat sheet, and it's 6 catches for 56 yards, and then one of them came off a 37-yard one-hander. George Pickens is not a type of guy, and I'm not saying this like he's a scrub. Like, obviously, you have to game plan for him. He can hurt your defense in ways, but he's not a guy that you can use in multiple different ways and he's effective. You can't put him in the slot and he's going to be effective from the slot. You can't hand the ball off to him on end arounds or reverses, and he can do different things like that. He's just, you line a guy up outside and, hey, he's going to beat you one-on-one, and, he might make a pretty catch or two. He's not a game changer. And in that division, like you perfectly just said, you have Lamar, you have Derrick Henry, game changers. Burrow, Jamar Chase, game changers. Who else is Cleveland?
I mean, Cleveland's got nobody. I mean,
Myles Garrett, game changer.
Yeah, Myles Garrett is a game changer. I could even make the case that his overall body of work, Jerry Jeudy was solid this year. Is he a game changer? No, but I think George Pickens is a lot further off from a game changer than many people think. And I also think, too, just looking at the numbers, I mean, I know Pickens, missed 3 games, but I mean, his numbers, Jeudy was a lot better. I mean, Jeudy was 6th in the NFL in yards. He was 14th in touchdowns. He was a top 12 receiver this year statistically. So you can even make the case that you would maybe take Jeudy. And that was Jeudy with no quarterback play. Watson, Winston, Zappy, who else? DTR. And I don't know. Kevin Stefanski maybe got a couple snaps. So and he made it work. But yeah, I agree. Like, Pickens is a guy that makes a couple one-handed catches. Everybody blows up about it. And he's not a guy that down in and down out is just elite, can make guys miss, all that stuff. Like, you don't watch George Pickens and then say to yourself, and then go watch Jamar Chase and even think that they're in the same planet. No. Like, he's just not that guy.
And I mean, I think that's I hate it. I mean, it's been rumors that Pittsburgh might be interested in possibly shopping him, but I just feel like they don't win anything with George Pickens as I would say number one. I'm gonna say on the team. I hate to go to even that depth of it, but it's just like he's the type of guy. He's not getting the targets. It's a problem. He's not
Mhm.
doing. He's not involved in the offense. It's a problem. It's always going to be a distraction. It's also going to be a problem. And from like the Steelers way throughout all the years, that's never been the case. Where you have one guy just so selfish to the point where they're just like, okay, well, let it be. The one guy that was like that, Le'Veon Bell, they got rid of him. You seen how that went. So that's not the Steelers way. So you got a guy in here that is so big headed. He's a diva. Everything's about him. You can't bring anybody in because you try to bring in. We're hypothetical here. You try to bring in Devontae Adams, who, hey, 10. If I'm throwing the ball 10 times, 7 of those are going to Devontae Adams over George
Yep.
Pickens. You bring a guy in like that, now George Pickens is causing issues in the locker room. It's just there's no one you can possibly bring in on that other side as a quarterback, as a receiver, as a running back that is someone that can completely take over a game that is going to balance out with George Pickens. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I agree, and I want to add on to this as well. It feels like Pittsburgh is kind of building their offense around the wrong pieces. That's what it feels like. Like George Pickens, let's be honest, isn't like a long-term elite receiver. Najee Harris is not a modern-day back that can compete in that division with a guy like a Derrick Henry. Pat Freiermuth is fine, but I mean, you need a lot more than just Pat Freiermuth, who is, to be honest, not Sam Laporta. He's not any of these elite tight ends, but he's solid. I mean, Pat Freiermuth's not going to take you to the promised land, though. You need more than just that.
And, I was going to add to Najee Harris, it just goes back into how we're saying they're in such a bad situation because, the ideal, let's say, perfect situational running back, it's almost like you have two different sides of the spectrum of a perfect running back nowadays. And you have your Saquon Barkleys, you have your Jonathan Taylors, your Derrick Henrys, which are your 22, 25 touch per game type of backs. We're going to run the ball down your throats. And they fit perfect for what they're at. But then you have, kind of your new way of things. You have your Jahmyr Gibbs. You have your Chase Browns. You have your Devin A-Chains, Bucky Irvins, where it's just like, we're probably going to run the ball 11, 12 times, but we're going to catch the ball 8, 9, 10 times, and we are all-purpose backs. Like, we are perfect. We can run the ball for you pretty well, but we can also be effective in the slot or as a pass catcher. Najee Harris falls in neither one of those categories. He's just like he's in the spot on his own. He's just Najee Harris.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. He doesn't provide a whole lot. There's runs where he'll show a little bit of explosiveness, but then there's other runs where he's kind of just they kind of fizzle out. He gets beat at the line of scrimmage and doesn't do a whole lot. So yeah, I agree. Najee Harris is not, and I understand he's had 1,000 yards in each of his first 4 seasons, but the yards per attempt quite isn't there. Again, we mentioned it, the pass catching ability out of the backfield. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't had a receiving touchdown in 2 years. So that's not really there. And I do think some of that could be system stuff.
Offense, yeah.
Yeah. But for right now, that's been the case for his first 4 seasons. So until otherwise, I think that's just the way it's going to be. I guess transitioning now from Pittsburgh to the Bengals side of things and T. Higgins with his future with the team, his future with anybody right now, free agency. We go from talking about a team that could be looking to revamp to a team that with an average defense should be able to compete with Buffalo, should be able to compete with the Ravens and the Chiefs next year for Super Bowl 60 very easily. And that's the Bengals. What do you think happens? I guess like prediction, if you had to say right on the spot, what do you think happens with Higgins?
That is so tough. It's tough. You see the side of it where from Cincy's angle where you're like, let's keep our core, no disrespect, but you're not bringing in nobody better than T. Higgins.
Yeah.
And Yoshi Vosh is not a number 2. I think he's a very solid wide receiver 3, but to step into that role No, and obviously Jermaine Burton doesn't know if he wants to be a criminal or a football player. So when that being said, you have no other reliable backup option outside of T. Higgins. So you look at the Bengals side and they're like, hey, we might give him the contract just because he's been like, we built something with him. But on T side of it, it's like, does he want to be a number one? I think we talked about this last offseason. It's like, does he want to be a number one or does he want the money? Does he want to win or does he want to be somewhere to just prove his worth, which I think he's done in Cincinnati. So
yeah,
I don't know where he goes. I mean, I see two teams that do pop up, which is the Commanders and Pittsburgh being another one, which Pittsburgh wouldn't shock me because it's like, hey, I'm gonna stay in division. You didn't want to pay me. It's a Saquon. It's gonna be the Saquon all over again. Stay inside the division and make you regret what you did. But if Cincy is smart, you just pay the man.
Yeah, I agree. And that would be a good move for Pittsburgh. That would be something that would be smart for them to do. Will they do it? We'll see. Yeah, I think I like the Commanders a lot potentially for Higgins. I think him and Daniels could be electric. You pair him with McLaurin as well. I think the run game this year for the Commanders was solid. You know, Brian Robinson Jr.'s look, the Commanders had a great season. Adding another receiver, adding another weapon to that repertoire, I think would be big. You know, it's kind of interesting just to see, like, it feels like there's some interest there from his side on wanting to go back to Cincy, and it feels like a contract could happen very soon. Maybe around 30 million. Some of the recent reports that have come out. I like both of those teams. For Higgins, I'm just trying to I guess maybe a team like the Patriots, if they, with the cap space they have, trying to think of teams that were like really, really bad last year that could use help at that position. Maybe the Raiders, maybe a team like that, potentially, where you bring in Pete Carroll. You obviously traded Devontae middle of last year to the Jets. You have Jacoby Myers. You have Brock Bowers. Myers, though, really is a number two. If you tell me Higgins and Brock Bowers as your 1-2 punch wide receiver tight end, you figure out the running back situation, whether either in the draft or free agency or trade or something like that. And then I think you have to trust Pete Carroll in that front office to find the right option at quarterback, however that is, because let's be honest, and we'll talk probably more about this as the offseason rolls on. And that's why the Steelers, too, kind of going back to them for a second, are in a tough spot. But this quarterback class, free agent wise, is ugly. I mean, it is really, really bad. It's really Sam Darnold, or you get to like the Kirk Cousins of the world, the Jameis Winstons. It's not pretty at all. And there's not too many trade candidates either that you really hear about much. I think maybe JJ McCarthy would have been one if Darnold took Minnesota all the way, but that's not happening anymore. So we'll see. But maybe a team like the Raiders. I have mentioned the Giants a couple times just because of where they're at. You tell me a Shedeur, let's say they draft Shedeur Sanders, Neighbors, and Higgins. Who knows if Shedeur is going to be any good, but that's something you can get excited about, and that's maybe something Higgins would be interested in. So I think it would be best for him to return to Cincy. He can win, and he gets money. He'll win, gets to play with Burrow alongside Chase. I think that's a perfect fit. But
that's the tough part because it's like, again, do I want to, in T. Higgins' case, do I want to go somewhere because I'm gonna get paid? I'm gonna be the number one receiver, and then after 2 to 3 years, I'm just like, all right, get me out of here without ever going to win. Or do I want to go somewhere, take less money, build it up in incentives, but hey, at least I know I'm going to win. Especially with, again, what they built in Cincinnati is like, do you want to leave that respectfully? Pete Carroll, I think, is a great coach, but do you want to leave that for Aiden O'Connell? Like, are we serious? If they don't go quarterback in the draft, do you want to leave that? I mean, the way the Giants are doing, I wouldn't trust anybody to go to the Giants. They might let you walk for the fun of it. So it's like, hey, I go to New York and I break out and have a great year, but now it's me or Neighbors. Are they going to ship me off and keep Neighbors? I don't think the Giants is an ideal situation. I think you stay in Cincy. You have to stay in Cincy.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll kind of find that out with Higgins, what he wants. whether he wants really good how much he values really, really good quarterback play, how much he values the winning aspect, how much he values the money aspect. I think too, and this kind of goes with the, winning money aspect too, but how much he values kind of being in a Jamar Chase shadow as opposed to being the number one with another team where it's all about him. Here's one team we just got done talking about, though. I don't know if they would look to add a guy like this, but do the Bills maybe say Amari Cooper's gone, they bring back Higgins? My only thing is they kind of just got rid of him. I'm not calling Higgins a diva, but they kind of just got rid of that number one that clearly wasn't meshing well with Allen towards the end there. Are they going to do that with T. Higgins?
I know this sounds crazy because it's T. Higgins, but I think you stay away from him. I think they've done well. We see it with Green Bay as well, where
kind of wide
there's no
receiver
number
one by
one.
committee.
Yeah, it's just whoever's kind of hot that game, whoever has the hot hand, that's what we're going to go with. We don't have to draw up 24 plays for one guy. Let's kind of just spread the love. And I think that is what has gotten Buffalo to where they are, and I think that's what they got to stick with.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think about the Niners?
I could see it.
Debo has.
They did just pay Ayuk. Yeah, Debo's gone. Unless if they see like. My other thing with the Niners would be like the whole Ayuk, and I know he got hurt, but it didn't really. Year one was pretty ugly. Would they want to go back down that road again of paying a number one or paying a guy a lot of money to come, go there? Or would they prefer kind of hanging it out with Ayuk and then maybe reevaluating next year's class, possibly? But yeah, I could see the Niners. He'd get a good mix of winning and maybe being the number one there. Because I personally would take Ayuk over or Higgins over Ayuk.
And that Niners team is another team that it's kind of wide receiver one by committee. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's just whoever has the hot hand. We've seen Jawan Jennings have crazy games. So I feel like that's not a crazy spot if they're willing to move on from Debo.
Now, I doubt it happens, but do you throw Dallas in the mix?
That's the way to get me bought back in. And, here sounds crazy, but, they've already stated that in the draft, the first or second round, they're going to try to look for a receiver. So let's say they go get a Luther Burden with their first pick, but still, Brandon Cooks. I don't know if Brandon Cooks makes $20 million a year. So would you? And he's a free agent, but if I'm going to pay Brandon Cooks $20 million a year, I might as well throw in an extra 10 and bring in T. Higgins, pair CeeDee Lamb. And you go get a Luther Burden and just completely clean house with that wide receiver room. Besides Jalen Tolbert, I think he can be a solid option for, but anybody else can walk. They can honestly, I would drop anybody else to Dallas Fort Worth Airport if T. Higgins is available and they sign him.
And you mentioned being bought back in. I think a pretty good start to the Schottenheimer era to set him up for success. Even if you don't go receiver, let's say in the draft, you go Higgins, you have CeeDee Lamb, and you take Genty, and then your core is next year Higgins, Lamb, Genty. That's a whole lot better than CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and whoever the heck they were rolling out, a running back, Rico, Dowdle, and Zeke.
So this is going to sound crazy, but let's say you get it. They don't go wide receiver in the draft. You get a T. Higgins, and it's like, okay, got wide receiver 2 and not a huge name, but let's say you get a Hollywood Brown who doesn't re-sign with the Chiefs, who also free agent, or even a KJ Osborne who's the same age as Hollywood Brown, who I think his time in Minnesota, he fared pretty well as that wide receiver 3. So you get a KJ Osborne who just needs to be reliable, doesn't need to be a complete game changer. Why not? That's what you run with. I personally love it.
Yeah. I agree. I'll tell you what, Dallas fans could probably use that right now.
I've been
not just Cowboys, the Mavericks fans as well.
It's bad in Dallas. They were hit with a bunch of snow, Luka, crazy news. But
at least you got Dallas, for those of you who care about hockey, Dallas Stars are good, having a solid year. So you do have the Dallas Stars, but
You got
you know,
SMU if you like college.
yeah,
The
SMU. The
SMU's right
Texas
around the
Rangers
way.
won a World Series, last year
But
or 2 years ago, 2023. So
not even gonna go on a long spill about them, but some of the coaching moves that they have made, I have actually been. I'm like, okay, I can see where this is going. At first, I'm just
mhm.
like, what are we doing? But now I can see where they're going. So depending on what they do in free agency and the draft, they might buy me back in.
Yeah.
They just might. It's a possibility.
Don't worry, I'm starting to get sucked back in.
It's tough, but yeah, it's happening.
Yeah. Happens to the best of them. We'll all be here week 1, ready to roll, all hyped up for Jets, Cowboys, and everything that. Who knows with those two teams what the season will entail? 2 first-time coaches. Will Rodgers be under center? Will there be any more help around Dak? They're going to throw Jerry
I,
Jones in at running back.
this is actually the first time where in some time where I'm kind of actually excited about free agency, even
Yeah,
though last year's like, hey, we're gonna be all in. But for
Derrick
once,
Henry.
it kind of seems like, oh, he didn't fit our system, by the way, so that's why. But
Yeah,
for once, we're feeling like, okay, they might actually do something, and then watch that them do something is like Ashton Doolin as our wide receiver free
I'm
agent
just
pickup.
I'm waiting for the Jerry Jones script to be revealed again.
I don't whatever it was from last year, don't do it again.
Oh,
That was bad.
I don't know what those scribbles are going to represent. Like now looking back on it, what did those scribbles represent for the Cowboys? Was that like what the running backs did in the backfield, just run around in circles?
It was what we were going to do this year. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Make everybody
That was
chase their
just what
tail.
he was thinking. Just nothing. Just a whole
Just
lot of scribbles.
absolutely nothing. He probably didn't think it. It was almost like I think you're. Are you the one that told me that Mike McCarthy was looking? It was the win time in Green Bay, or it might have been someone I work with. His time in Green Bay, I think they were playing Chicago, and he was looking up at the jumbotron, and they actually don't have one above his head in wherever they were at. That was
Oh,
basically what Jerry Jones was doing. It's kind of just like maybe they'll think I'm onto something, and I'm cooking up something, but I'm absolutely cooking up nothing. And that
yeah.
was just Jerry Jones.
Yep. Jerry Jones. He's desperate, man. He's trying one more. Got to get one more. He's getting up there.
I mean, on the bright side, there's probably nothing worse you can do, Jerry Jones, this offseason than what the Mavericks 20 minutes down the road just did.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't
Yeah.
go any lower than that, I think you're okay.
Yeah, that's the truth. It does. The Mavericks trade does kind of
Makes it look better.
makes Jerry Jones look a little bit better for the time being. So we'll see.
Until he trades Dak to Tennessee for Shador Sanders and I don't
Imagine
know.
that. Dion gives him a call like in March. Hey, I want to come coach. They fire Schottenheimer, bring in Dion, and then trade Dak.
Trade Dak, get Arthur Smith, and
Oh my God.
and we call it a day.
3 wins.
This
I like the
team.
I like the Cowboys' chances if they can talking yourself into a T. Higgins and like a potential Ashton Genty combo. I like that. I like that for them.
If he's smart, yes, he does it. But since he made the comment, we're like, you can't. When Devontae wanted to be traded, we're like, you can't have 2 number 1 receivers on a team. You most definitely can.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But as for now, I'm gonna stay as disconnected as possible, and then maybe what did that window open up? March, maybe I buy back in. But until then, just staying away from it.
Yep. All righty. Finish things up here. NFL awards prediction. NFL honors, I believe, is on Thursday. Right? Am I correct?
I think so. Yes, it should be.
NFL honors 2025. Let's see. Who is hosting it this year? Is it Snoop? Isn't it Snoop Dogg?
That's actually a great question.
Let's
Again,
see.
I've been
Who is
so
hosting it? Thursday, February 6th. Yes.
It's been so bad outside of our weekly shows. I've been so disconnected from football. Dallas just completely vacuumed the life out of me. This was
Yeah.
a bad year. I haven't
Yeah, I
kept up.
agree. This was one of the rough seasons for the NFL. Just the way the Jets. This is the worst Jets season I've ever experienced. My fantasy football team sucked. I'm looking forward to the offseason. The offseason always provides like new life,
Yeah.
get you excited. I like a lot of the offseason conversations. It's, breaking down, different players going elsewhere, which pieces fit, which pieces don't fit.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe by week 1, we'll have the answer at the Saints coach. We'll see. That might be pushing it, though. We might be looking they might just forego 2025 and in 2026 hire.
Just opt out in
Yeah, just
2025.
opt out.
We're just not going to
I
do it
mean, they
this
might
year.
as well, because even if they play in 2025, it's basically going to be like they're opting out.
Unless which they don't, unless they play Dallas. Other than that, it's an
Yeah,
opt out. But if it's
it's true.
Dallas, it's the national championship, it's the Olympics, it's the Super Bowl. It's just all the chips are nothing.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's get into it. Predictions here. We could also throw into who we think should win the award, but predictions. MVP, 5 finalists: Josh Allen, Saquon, Burrow, Jared Goff, Lamar. Who you got?
Whoa, did you just say Jared Goff? Whoa, did you say Jared Goff?
Yeah, I believe he's a finalist.
Okay. Oh, all right.
Right? Did I write that? I think I wrote that down correctly. Do you have him as a
Whoa.
finalist?
I do. I don't. Well, not. I didn't
Maybe
even
I.
write down all the finalists. I just wrote down who I think should win it. I just did not expect Jared Goff to be in the MVP
Let me see. Let
award.
me make
But
sure I wrote this down correctly. MVP finalist.
what are
Maybe
we
I was
doing?
wrong. Maybe I missed somebody, or maybe I missed it. No, yeah. Allen, Barkley, Burrow, Goff, Lamar.
Okay, well, awards
I mean,
obviously don't mean
I'm picking Jared Goff. I'm just kidding.
awards
That's not happening.
after Trey Young and Demontis Sabonis got left out of the All Star. Obviously, awards and voting for sports related stuff doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah.
But MVP. I mean, I think there's only one right answer. Who do you have? I think who are you going with? Who
I
gets your
mean,
vote?
it's tough. Who I think should win, it should be Josh Allen, in my opinion. Who I think will win, I think there's a good chance Josh wins, but I would not be surprised at all if Lamar wins, just because of the season he had. If you match up their stats, he's been better than Allen statistically. I personally value MVP more than just numbers. So I think it'll be Allen. You know what? I guess I'll predict Lamar. But I think Allen should win.
I'm right on board with that one. I mean, kind of the same thing. You take Lamar off that team, you take Josh Allen off that team. How
Yeah.
do both teams look? But from the year that Lamar had, from the numbers that he put up, just
Yeah.
video game like just effort every week, it's probably
Yeah.
gonna be Lamar.
And he won the award last year when Josh Allen was statistically better than him. Josh Allen this year, Lamar was statistically better than. They're going to give it to him. So I agree with that.
And Dak Prescott was also statistically better than Lamar
Yes,
last year as
he
well.
was. But
I'm always gonna throw that out there, but we know who got it. So
I agree.
yeah.
All right, moving on here. Defensive Player of the Year. 5 finalists as well. Zach Bond, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Pat Surtain, TJ Watt. So another TJ Watt, Myles Garrett battle. I'll tell you what, Zach Bond's very underrated. He probably won't win the award. Not somebody that gets talked about a ton, but a very, very good linebacker and a massive piece for that Eagles team. Obviously getting to the Super Bowl. Huge year for him. First year with Philly. Massive career year. Really, after just being a rotational guy for New Orleans, he's completely taken off. So massive credit to Zach Bond. Feels like maybe the start of some big years ahead for him as he reaches 28 years old. But I think the other 4 guys are more realistic. To me, I think Pat Surtain's going to win, if I had to predict. But I do think it's hard to pass up on Trey Hendrickson, who had 17 and a half sacks this year. It was the guy that almost put up 20 sacks. I know sacks aren't the end all be all, but Hendrickson's a monster. And I think sometimes Garrett and TJ Watt, rightfully so, get a lot of the attention. But Hendrickson, I think, in that out of those three guys in that division, gets talked about the least, and he should be talked about more. So I guess I'll go Hendrickson as who I think should win, but who will win? I think it's gonna be Pat Surtain. And to be fair, I think I'd be right. I'd be on board with that. Pat Surtain's a monster. He's had a huge year. It's tough to be a corner and be in this conversation. I think he's the betting odds favorite. So
I think I'm gonna go Surtain as well, who I think will win it. But my vote personally, from one FAU alum to another, Trey Hendrickson, like probably the only FAU legend to ever play there. So Trey Hendrickson is going to definitely get my vote for Defensive Player of the Year. But I think I want to be mad at Surtain either. He had a great year, so go with Surtain.
Never forgive Joe Douglas for signing Carl Lawson over Trey Hendrickson.
Nah.
So that's DPOY. Moving on, Offensive Player of the Year: Barkley, Burrow, Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, Lamar. To be honest, I don't really know if there's really much debate in this one. It's gonna be Saquon.
Yeah,
I guess it probably should be.
Jamar Chase, that Triple Crown winner. I think it's not getting talked about enough, but it's a no-brainer. Saquon's going to win that one.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be Saquon. Should it be Chase? Yeah, you can make a strong argument, but when you almost beat the rushing record, when you go to a team and in year one they're in the Super Bowl, definitely going to be him.
Yeah.
All right. Offensive Rookie of the Year: Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Bo Nix, and Brian Thomas Jr. I like Daniels in this one. I know voting happens before the playoffs, but I think the playoffs speak for themselves. Bo Nix had a very productive season, got bounced in the first round on the road. Daniels went on the road, won 2 playoff games, beat the 1 seed in Detroit, obviously fell short against Philly, but I think that right there separates him amongst the rest of these guys. So give me Jaden Daniels who I think will win, and I also think should win.
Right on board. No brainer. No need for further explanation. Is Jaden Daniels all the way?
Yes, agreed. Defensive Rookie of the Year: Cooper DeJean, Braden Fisk, Quinyon Mitchell, Chop Robinson, and Jared Verse. Couple good names on here. I think you can make a case, couple different areas. I was very pleased with what Jared Verse was able to do this season. I think Quinyon Mitchell had a very good season. I'm going to see who do you think takes this home? I am curious because I want to see.
I think it's going to be Jared Verse, but I actually really like Cooper DeJean. I'm not going to lie to you.
So you think it should be DeJean?
I think it should be Jared Verse. I think it will be Jared Verse, but I would not be mad if it's Cooper DeJean. I think he was just phenomenal this year, but Jared Verse was as well.
Yeah, I think Verse will win. I like Quinyon Mitchell a lot. I think Quinyon Mitchell is a guy that I like him a lot as a guy to win this award. 12 passes defended this season. Did really well against some of the better receivers. I know, again, playoffs don't matter, but had the pick last week. Has had a very good postseason. Thought he had I think what impressed me with Quinyon Mitchell is sorry.
Yeah, I'm a little sick too on this. I'm a little sick on this end too. You're good.
I think what Quinyon Mitchell is, like, early in the season, he had a lot of success, and I think that's impressive for a rookie corner. DeJean as well, but I'll go Verse and then Mitchell is to win it. All right. Hold on. Final one here. Sorry, accidentally X'd out of notes. All right, final one, or second last one. Comeback Player of the Year: Burrow, Darnold, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez, Damar Hamlin. Who you got?
I think it's going to be Joe Burrow, but my vote is going to J.K. Dobbins. I think that's who I'm going to put if I could.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be Burrow too. This again brings up the whole case with the award of comeback player versus most improved. All Darnold came back from was sucking. So it's a debate for another day, but I think it'll probably be Dobbins too, I could see. But wait, you said Dobbins. You think it'll be Dobbins?
I think it'll be Burrow, but it
Or
should
Burrow?
be Dobbins.
Dobbins. I think it'll be Burrow too. I agree. I think it should be Dobbins, but I think I'm fine with Burrow. I think with Dobbins, yeah, what he's overcome the last 2 years is much greater than what Burrow overcome. But in terms of performance, Dobbins had a productive year. But if they're going off of performance, it would be Burrow coming off of the injury. But yeah, in terms of how much overcoming, yeah, it'd be Dobbins. DeMar Hamlin, I think if he was going to win it, probably would have been last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I agree. I think it'll be Burrow, but I can get on board with Dobbins. I think it's Dobbins or Burrow. I think should win it. To be honest, nothing against the guy. I don't really get the whole Christian Gonzalez on there. Like,
no,
I mean, he's good, but I don't really think he was that good. And I think these other guys performed a lot better and overcame a little bit more. Final award here, AP Coach of the Year, Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, Andy Reid. I think you can make a strong case for every single one of the guys on this list. Maybe only outside of Andy Reid, and I have nothing against Reid. It's just because they're in it every year. It's not like something Andy Reid did this year was anything special. Like, they've been doing this now. So I don't think it'll be Andy Reid, but it is funny to see Andy Reid on this list because technically every year, I guess he's kind of the coach of the year, taking his team to a three-peat. But who do you think wins this award? I think some of these other guys with what they were working with could certainly be up there.
You said Dan Quinn, right?
Yeah.
I think Dan
Quinn.
I think it will be Dan Quinn, but Jim Harbaugh was definitely snubbed.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That's kind of ridiculous, but I think it'll be Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jim Harbaugh, again, Andy Reid, great coach, but right, would you agree? Maybe throw Harbaugh in there?
Absolutely.
Because I don't think anything that, to me, Coach of the Year means like you took a team that wasn't supposed to do a whole lot and had a very big year, right? All these teams. Dan Campbell, a little bit different. I guess it's just more so what he's been able to do the last 2 years with that team. Kevin O'Connell, right, taking Darnold to the playoffs. Sean Payton taking a rookie to the playoffs. Dan Quinn taking a 4-13 team and turning him into a NFC championship team. Harbaugh as well, I think, taking a team that was awful and turning into a playoff team. Reid does this every year. That's nothing new. I think it should be Dan Quinn. I could also make a strong case for Kevin O'Connell. I think what he did with Darnold was very impressive. Not many coaches can do that. I think he deserves a ton of credit. I also think you can throw Sean Payton. I also think Sean Payton could make a strong case for him. Taking a rookie and let's be honest, a team that wasn't very talented, went into the year with no expectations, a team that was still paying Russell Wilson, 38, 39 million, and they managed with Bo Nix. So, but Dan Quinn, that culture, everything that's happened there, to come in year one and do what he did is the most impressive. All right. Another podcast in the books. Any closing thoughts?
No. Just ready for next week. That's about it.
Yep. Same here. I'm right there with you. Close out the season, Chiefs, Eagles. We'll be back next week previewing that game, breaking down all angles of it. Of course, any other news that comes out as well over the next week. And once the Super Bowl's over with, it's full on off season. We'll have a lot of draft content, of course. Free agency will be here before you know it in March. So that'll be a big time. And then before you know it, off-season flies. The off-season, it seems slow kind of at first in February, but once free agency hits, that really kind of takes off. You get free agency, you'll get some trades. We'll start to find out, answers around some of these quarterbacks and what's happening. And you'll obviously have franchise tag deadlines and all that stuff. So that'll all be talking points. draft. And then, yeah, before you know it, we'll be entering that mini camp phase. And then we'll have that kind of break. And then before you know it, we'll be talking about training camp. And I kind of mesh training camp in with like the start of the season. Once training camp starts, it feels like August, that whole month is just full on football's back. Just like a warm up, kind of the appetizer to the regular season. So we'll be here for it all. So stay tuned. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next week.